Session with Professor Osita Ogobu, who was the former executive director of the ATPS initiative and is one of the founders of the exercise. And this one-day session was really about getting to grips with what the ethics of winning institutions are. And he's taken us through quite a variety of very insightful, anecdotal can I start again?
It's okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take it again.
We've just been through an intensive one-day training exercise with Professor Osita, who's the former executive director of ATPS. And he took us through a variety of different understandings of what makes institutions successful. And part of this was revealing to us some of the very human behavioral characteristics that undermine institutions, as well as the cultural and ethical foundations upon which these institutions are built and how it might affect them. The really critical things about this training exercise and why it was so important is that primarily the main challenge that we're facing in Africa is building up networks and building up institutions. In fact, one of the main failure points in all countries in Africa, especially south of the equator, is the failure of institutional cultures. Even in South Africa, we've been struggling to formulate institutional cultures that are not based on fear and mistrust and can migrate towards the kinds of cultures which build respect, which build dignity, which build ethical action. And the things that he's exposed to us in this training session have really given everyone food for thought, not just in terms of their role as leaders, but also has given them a lot to reflect on a personal level, because it's very human failings that lead to the failure of institutions. So, to put it simply, what I understand from his talk is that when institutions are governed in hierarchical ways that prevent the freedom of expression of ideas and the freedom of communication, the freedom to take responsibility for wrong, and also the freedom to fail, then we end up having real problems in our institutions because we are unable to self-correct these institutions, we are unable to adapt to changing circumstances, and we are unable to seize new opportunities. The beauty of his talk is that it started very simply. It started from an understanding of what the World Cup winning soccer coaches had to say about building teams. And at first I was a bit reticent to go through what some World Cup coaches have said. Being an academic, I was looking for some kind of formal training on leadership. But very quickly, I started to understand that the links that he was building to their comments had very deep significance to them. Because these problems that we're facing are shared, in truth, not just in Africa, but in institutions across the world. Some of the moral failings that he mentions, we tend to attribute to our condition, especially being developing countries which are part of the global south. But when we look at the failure of the global economy, and this is what really made me think deeply about it, it was also because of the failure of ethics. It was about creating mechanisms for managing debt in such a way that bad debt became viewed as good debt. And that led to a very few people getting very rich and the collapse of the entire global economy. So the lessons that he's giving us are not just for us labored African countries who struggle to get things right. It's actually endemic to institutions at the highest global levels down to the lowest levels in the most fraught, fractured states. When I think of where this could be, this kind of thinking could really find relevance and could be used instrumentally, I had to reflect on my own experience in South Africa, because we have many institutions which have all the right capacity at the upper levels. They have the right vision, they have the funding, they have, and they put it in the right places. But what we lack is the institutional capacity to deliver from top management down to middle management, down to the implementation levels. What Professor Osita was taking us through is a range of considerations upon which we could reflect, that hopefully we can take back to our institutions and make them function a lot better. The challenge that we're facing is growing. So it is not just about particular institutions which might be focused on water or energy or science and technology or innovation doing their jobs very well in separation from each other. The problems that we're facing in the world are becoming increasingly integrated. So there's going to be an even higher demand on our institutions in future, not just to be able to deliver within themselves from the top to the bottom, but to work laterally across organizations and across sectors to create the kinds of responsible, sustainable growth that we want in our economies, whether it be at the city level or whether it be at the national levels. So in other words, what I'm saying is that the challenges that we're going to face are going to require us to understand these simple principles of trust, responsibility, loyalty, of being able to take risks and innovate, is really going to be one of the biggest challenges we face, because the problems we're facing, we already know some of them are getting worse, but they are going to be exacerbated by how much everything is connected more than ever before in the world. So, for example, when we face a water problem, it's not just a water problem, it's an industry problem, it's an agriculture problem, it's also a production of food problem, and it's also a problem of production of energy. So what he was giving us are some very key mechanisms that relate to how we can transform our understanding of institutions and transform our behaviors within institutions. And the most interesting element within this is that it requires some honest self-reflection. Simply put, if I understand his talk well, or if I understand it properly, he's asking us not to go into negative narratives. He's asking us to resist the temptation to go through connecting facts around us in the most negative way that we can, and always to keep in mind that there should be a dual approach. You know, we need to sometimes be very paranoid and suspicious of things. Right? It's necessary sometimes for survival. But at the same time, we should be telling ourselves the positive stories, that this is opening up new spaces, that this might be an interesting thing. It's especially important when it comes to innovation, because every innovator knows that you fail 10 times before you succeed once. So the space to be able to try and fail is not one that can demand success all the time. It needs to be a culture of learning. So ultimately, what it seems to me that the one-day training session was about is how do we create these learning organizations, and not just intellectual learning organizations, but learning organizations which can also learn emotionally, in a sense that they create the safe spaces for people to try out new ideas. And if they fail, it has the fallback mechanisms that allow them to learn from it, adapt their plan, and they might have been aiming at one target, but they might end up achieving something far greater because of the learning they engendered in failing towards meeting that target. So the most often used phrase throughout the day was that when a child is learning to walk, they learn basically by falling. And this is what we've forgotten, and we tend to demand so much from ourselves, from our teammates, from our bosses, from our leaders, that we forget that sometimes, that actually most times, the most important things we learn, like how to stand on 2 feet, how to read and write, comes from making many errors. Even in mathematics, if anyone remembers being a child, you mainly get things wrong before you get things right. So, in terms of transforming this culture, it is probably the most critical challenge for countries in the developing world that belong to the global south, but especially in Africa. If our institutions cannot work effectively with each other within their organizations and across different institutions and organizations, we are not going to be able to solve the very difficult challenge we have of turning African development around and moving it towards prosperity. Yeah?
It's not 11, that's okay.
Okay.
2, 3, 4.
Thank you so much. This afternoon we had a very interesting talk by Osita Ogbo from Nigeria, the founding member of ATPS and the former executive director of ATPS. He tried to bring in the issue of football. He's a soccer fan. He brought in the experiences of the winning soccer coaches for the past 4 matches, the World Cup, and he brought out a lot of things that have been very interesting that we could use in our operations, in our relationships, in our institutions, even in the operations of ATPS, all is with a view of seeing that we have a successful ATPS and a very pronounced network that can produce results. One of the things that came out in his speech was that all these coaches, one thing they did was to plan. Planning is very key in whatever endeavor somebody wants to undertake. They need to plan for the activities and take care of eventualities, because he talked about a coach who sat down and analyzed a situation where some players that he had co-opted in a team are not able to pitch on the day of the match. All those things are eventualities that we encounter in our day-to-day operations of different companies that we're representing, ATPS included. And he brought out also the issue of not being content, where because somebody has won, then you just prematurely start celebrating. He brought in an issue of, always not celebrating maturely, because anything can happen. Even in the dying minutes, you fight until the end. I think he cited those who are soccer lovers. He cited a situation where somebody is so confident just before the end of the match and they've ended up losing. It happened to the Ghana soccer team. And it's the same thing that encourages us that we should never ever give up. In whatever we do, we should always fight till the end until the goal is achieved. He brought in also issues of planning and issues of vision and mission. There are 2 questions, critical questions that one has to ask. One is how and why. And the order in which these two questions are asked is very critical. Because before you do anything, you have to start why, which states the vision. Why are you doing what you're doing? And it's from there that you're going to come up on how you're going to do it for you to achieve your set objective. That consists of the mission. And I must say that it's been an eye-opener to all of us that way. There personally, I've learned so much. I've learned of things that I'm going to learn even in my personal life, not just at my workplace. And I'm sure it's going to have positive impacts on the operations of the company I'm representing. And I hope this is going to be a lesson. And I pray that this could be presented at other forums where more and more people can learn. Because we are just a handful of us, but there are so many people that need what we learned today. It's very difficult to summarize even now, but it would be nice that he could be used even in other forums to enlighten as many people as possible. He also brought out issues of character. It's something that we all live with, but we take for granted. He referred to character and perception. It's like character is a tree and perception is a shadow. Character is a real thing and perception is a shadow, because character is who you are, while perception is it's what people think of you. So it's more important. In fact, if somebody said you have a character, they've said it all. And you can be learned, but if you don't have character, then you're nothing. And he brought out some pillars of character, which included responsibility, caring, and hard work. And towards the end, he brought out the work ethics. See how you can contribute to the well-performing of the company. How one has to be creative, one has to be hardworking. But in all these things, I've learned one or two things that I would like to highlight. One thing is that in the facts that we know of, there are always stories that have been told, but the fact should always be the fact. What this means is that usually when something happens, wants to lean to depend or want to assume a lot of things and ended up in problems, but a fact will always remain a fact. One fact may mean a lot of stories being told, and in telling those stories, usually the negative is stronger than the positive. The wrong is more pronounced than the good. So much that in whatever we do, even in our own personal lives, we should always remind ourselves when something happens, we should be very careful how we treat something that we are not sure of until a fact is established, because a fact always remains a fact. And these stories, anyone can tell anything, because we are human beings and always want to tell what we think, maybe because of what we've been told or because of what we see happen. But ultimately, a fact will always be a fact. And the one thing I know from today's lessons is that, knowledge is power. Once you have this knowledge, then you know. And I believe that all of us that have attended, it's been an opportunity, and we are all going to share, even to the people that have remained in our different countries that we are representing, different institutions that we work for, and the people that we are going to meet, that whatever we've learned are real life situations, and it's something very practical, something very usable, and I believe that it has made a difference. It's not like we're perfect beings, but there will be an improvement because now we have this knowledge. And I believe that the truth, when the truth is told, the truth is a truth, and it really sets you free. So it's an opportunity for each of us that whatever we endeavor to do in the future, having acquired this knowledge will always represent the truth. And I think it's something that is mostly taken for granted. We don't really give thought to these things, but these are the same things that happen. And it's good that you invited him. He was invited to present this presentation to this forum. And I pray that other people will be able to benefit from his presentation. And it's going to impact on so many people and so many lives. Thank you so much.
Down if you don't mind.
Okay.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, it's great to be back in Kenya, in Mombasa. Mombasa has always been a great venue for ATPS activities, and we've had annual workshops in Mombasa before. This is particularly exciting for me because ATPS is an institution that I nurtured and helped to stabilize. And there's no greater joy than to see an institution that one has nurtured, made serious investments and sacrifice, still running healthy and even doing better than I have, than when I left it. I have seen the quality of publications. I have seen the expansion of the chapters to Egypt, Sudan, Rwanda, Liberia, becoming more active. And I see even intercontinental chapters. I mean, you're having chapters in UK and US and even focal points in Brazil and so on. So, for me, this is a delight that this young institution is going places. And it has always been the vision for those of us who have the history that we will create a unique institution for African voice in science and technology policy. It is like no other institution. It's an institution that allows Africans to express themselves, to learn, to succeed, to fail and learn again, to build capacity, to interact with policymakers. So we designed it carefully. And I'm glad that the current executive director, the management, have stuck to this vision and taking it to a new level to really make it a Pan-African affair. What I have come to do is to ask them not just to maintain the standard of excellence, but to even take it to a new level. If you want to be a leader in science and technology policy, you cannot be satisfied with what is adequate. You have to be satisfied with what is excellent. You have to constantly challenge yourself and take the activities to a new level. So the essence of today's training is to remind the staff, the national coordinators, that we are still in the process of building an international network of excellence. We are happy with what we have achieved, but we have to keep reminding ourselves that we have a mission and vision of transforming Africa using science and technology and innovation. So, if you look at the way the training has been packaged, we started basically we're looking at issues that will remind staff, management about leadership, about need to create change and manage change, about what does it mean to work as a team, what does team spirit mean, what does success represent, what does it mean to be one another's keeper. Do you have to shine alone? Do you have to score alone? Do you have to be a star? And we also reminded leadership and management that when you have star players, you also have to manage them. You have to pay attention to them. You need to motivate them to do more, because there is a tendency to pay attention to those who are not actually performing. And ATPS cannot afford, because it doesn't have the luxury nor the resources to pamper to those who are not delivering. So we spent the first part of this training trying to understand what it takes to be a winning institution, the ethics, the requirements, the attitude that are required for an institution to stay on a winning path and to even win more. In the second part, we reinforced that by looking at issues of character, values, and work ethics. And in that, we dealt with issues like candor in the workplace. What is it that we should do to enable people be creative, express themselves, take up more challenge, take risks, and knowing that whether they succeed or not, they will be protected. For both staff and management to understand that they are in this together, and that staff cannot always blame management, and management cannot always blame staff, and that it is a partnership. The institution should be open. People should be able to fully express themselves. Leadership should be fair, equitable, and just. And I think even at the national chapter level, they should learn how to de-emphasize the national coordinator, but emphasize the chapter, and build its chapter in such a solid manner that people feel a sense and more people are willing to register and become members of ATPS. Because the more we have these disciples of science, technology, and innovation for Africa, the better for us. And I often say that ATPS was created to make useful noise for science and technology. Because for a very long time, the issues of science and technology have never received attention significant attention from the international community. And Africans were beginning to believe that some other people do science and we consume it, rather than understanding that knowledge in whatever form, whether it is science, technology, or innovation, must have a context.
Do you think ATPS has played its role in Africa in ensuring that STI? I mean, most people in Africa now are more empowered.
ATPS is playing its role in building a network that reaches out to the Africa Union, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNESCO, and popularizing the use of science and technology, and also building capacity in the area of science technology policy, which is a different field from science. And so even through the interactions that they have with journalists, through the science writing or writers workshop, through the Youth for Science and Technology, and now a new program that's going to emerge on women, science and technology for innovation and change. All of these are added because yesterday we were talking about an alumni of ATPS. There are so many of us who have passed through ATPS who are also occupying important positions in government, whether it is in Uganda, whether it is in Nigeria, whether it is in Tanzania, whether it is in Zambia, in many countries. So, in Ghana, these people, wherever they work, the knowledge, the skills they've acquired as part of ATPS will still be with them. And so, sometimes it's not easy for you to see the impact, but if you do as the review, I'm sure they're doing a review that is going to come out soon. I'm sure there are going to be so many positive things said about what this young, vibrant institution has done and continue to do for the continent in terms of science and technology, innovation for development.
What kind of advice would you give the upcoming scientists in Africa? Like already we have this institution, but there are some who do not have, they don't have that kind of platform. They don't have a place to express themselves. They don't know about ATPS. What kind of advice would you give this kind of people?
One is that many people should attempt to or should join ATPS. That's one. But I think the theme of this workshop, this conference, is very apt. How do you begin to translate science and technology, the research we do, into policy? How do we bridge the gap between the scientists and policymakers? And you find that scientists are not entrepreneurial. They think it's enough for them to generate the ideas, but for someone else to market the ideas. What we are trying to say is that those who generate the ideas are the strongest marketers of those ideas. You can't produce something and somebody else takes it off you. It is you that know the quality, the robustness, the challenge that has resulted in those results and what they can do. So we should, as scientists, acquire certain entrepreneurial skills that allows us to engage in the marketplace of ideas and to begin to translate what we do into forms that are useful to policymakers, and also to do research that addresses what I call the headache of the policymaker. Because the policymaker can't be going on a certain trajectory and you are doing work on another. It will not meet those needs. So it's for us to be creative, entrepreneurial, and work in a multidisciplinary forum like this that allows scientists to interact and bring results that are actually implementable.
So do you think ATPS has managed to bridge the gap between the policy makers, the politicians, opinion makers, and the public?
The way ATPS is set up is such that it gives it that unique advantage, because the national chapters are able to address national concerns, and the national chapters are able to address national policymakers. Most regional institutions are struggling on how to disseminate and advocate some of their work. because they don't have those linkages at the national level. So part of the convening power of ATPS is that ATPS national chapters are linked up to institutions of governance in their various countries, whether it is the parliament, the executive, women's association, youth, and so on. So they are then able to tap into the ATPS network and use the platform and knowledge to address their own national issues. Most institutions that do not have these linkages are actually struggling.
Where do you visualize ATPS in the next 10, 15 years?
Well, I hope that those who support ATPS will realize that this is indeed a unique institution that is going places, that has been able to attract quite a number of African researchers, and that they should actually support it with more resources. I see ATPS in the next couple of years being at par with certain other academies, and yet retaining its unique features, which includes this networking of chapters, which includes membership, which includes an open interactive forum, capacity building, support for research, advocacy, training of parliamentarians, for instance, journalists, science writers. So I see a robust institution in the next couple of years that African governments can also begin to recognize and support as their own.
Okay, maybe as a last word, you've been inside ATPS as an executive director. You're a co-founding member. You're a founding member, I know that for a fact. You're outside ATPS now as an advisor, as a committee member. What would you advise, like the people within the secretariat, the regional committee members, the national chapters? What word of advice would you give all these people in this group?
Well, there is a common purpose, and ATPS vision and mission are clear. Whether you are in the regional advisory group or national chapter or in the secretariat, you must key into that vision and mission and see yourself as an integral part. I would say that they need to redouble their efforts to make sure that we are building a formidable institution, because institutions can come and go. But ATPS is having tap roots, solid ones, that I believe that in the future will make them sustainable. So for all layers, by the way, including the board, there should be cohesion, there should be learning constantly, there should be adjustment, there should be some flexibility as well in adapting to emerging challenges that Africa faces. And many people are beginning to realize that we need to get our science, technology, and innovation right before we can become an industrialized continent.
I think that's it. I'm happy.
Link university research to policy and practice.
First of all, it is a well-known fact that research, and by implication, education, is the driver of development. Driver of development of any country, driver of development of human capital resource, driver of innovations, driver of inventions. And most nations, most growing nations, develop strategic plans of how and direction they want to develop. And universities usually take a cue from national development plans to draw their research plans. And research is about solving problems of the societies, problems of the nation, problems of the community. It is not a rocket science. And you can now see the tie, the relationship between research and national development plan, national policy making. Because nations normally don't have enough resources to drive research, the private sector, the industry, is usually the engine house that provides the resources to drive research. And you see from policy to actual implementation in the average tower in research centers to industry, who are the end users of most research and the financiers of this research. So obviously, without a link between this policymakers and industry and research, education systems, we can hardly have a structured development.
Now, can you tell us what the strategies have been applied so far that has made it possible for the implications so far in CAD?
Sorry?
The strategies that the universities have adopted to make it the implication that they have put, which have been in CAD so far.
Particularly in Africa, where we have a problem of access to universities. We are a number of universities, we are a number of resource persons, or so many candidates who want to benefit from university education. The implication of this situation is that research is undermined, is reduced. But the universities have addressed research, knowing fully well that research is the basis of development and is the driver of excellence in the university system. It is by research, by generating new information, by creating innovations, that you see new knowledge to transfer to the young people that you are teaching. And so it has been a priority for most universities, even in spite of the serious, severe pressure of access that most universities in Africa are suffering.
How can we say we have that goodwill because to the policymakers and the leaders, because sometimes they say that what the scientists are putting forward is some jargons that maybe the people and the policymakers cannot maybe try to understand. So how are we addressing such
I think it's a matter of priority. It's a matter of priority. The policymakers understand the important need for research. And researchers also know that their role is to solve societal problems within the context of policies, within the context of national strategic plans. And so there is a nexus between researchers, policymakers, and where there was problem initially was in getting private sector or the industry to key in as obtains in the first world, in the developed countries. And you can see in the new developments recently that the private sector are now partnering with industry and even talking with governments in order to collate their joint objectives, joint goals, and then address them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You are going to lose business.
Why, my friend?
My friend, you might lose business if you not careful.
My friend,
Otherwise, you
see growing the sky.
Ahead. What I'm doing today is what we do in the context of good corporate governance. Those who thought Africans have not learned to do good governance and to pass on leadership to others, we can now show that just like in the country where we are, Kenya, which does that smoothly, we have come to a point where I have completed my term and I'm stepping down from the chairmanship of the board because my term has ended. In fact, I had overstayed given the need to make a smooth transition. But time has come now to step down very smoothly. So I've now stepped down after the 4 years of chairing the ATPS board. And we have, as a board, according to the mandate we have, recommended one of us to take over, and that's Professor Abdul Razak, who is on my immediate right. So he has kindly agreed to take over. So maybe we can give you an applause so that we don't give the chance to say no. So after this clapping, new chairperson, I think you are really obliged to say yes. So may I now invite the new chair to formally take over and run the business of the day. Karibu Chairman.
Me to say yes. Can I add the word yes? We can.
Yes.
I humbly accepted your recommendations and approval and confirmation that I can be your servant for the next few years. My only request will be, before I make my remarks, may I be told when I'm finishing my term, so that I have very specific tasks and I do not overstay as well. I think that's also another good governance. So that you know, and I'm sure I'll be told about that. But today we are on AGM, and it's really my honor and privilege to spearhead this first AGM as I'm in the office. And I just want to make a few remarks because I know you've been waiting since 2, and first apology, the board meeting took a little bit longer than anticipated, but for good reasons. I would also want to recognize the presence of my colleagues who are also among the audience here. We have Brian, if you'd like to, just wave. And then also we have Professor Ison. Yes, Professor, he likes sitting at the back, but his position is in front. Professor Ison there. We had other board members. As you know, Kenya, we are faced with strikes in the university, so one of our colleagues couldn't be able to come, Professor Agnes Mongombe, because of that she's in management. But all said and done, I think as we take up this position now to be your servant, just to remind you that we would like to appreciate some role models among ourselves. And I think we need to celebrate some of the achievements Africa had, right from your national chapters and coordinators to the national programs, and of course at the continental level. Because very often, Africa, we tend to paint a very gloomy picture, so to speak. I did it deliberately the first day so that I could provoke you, but then there were some nice things that as well we were able to talk. I have witnessed some of them. So we need to identify good practices that we've been able to do in a way of good governance, because it's all about governance. If you can embrace governance, I think we should be able to have what we call leapfrog and be able to catch up with the rest of the world. Secondly, I also want to encourage each one of you to continue networking at the individual level. I know we've got this organization, but if possible, also we have bilateral agreements and arrangements that will enable us to work together as we look at this big agenda of policies linking up with the society. It is very important that we understand and appreciate the policies that ATPS have in place and be able to cascade it down all the way to our institutions. I have noticed some of the countries who have got very, very few members, and it's upon all of us really to advocate, on this issue of membership so that we can bring as many people as possible. This to me is a movement, is unstoppable movement. It's an agenda that has been developed by Africa for Africans to be implemented in Africa. And I think we're not going to wait for people from outside to come and dictate to us. Now we've been given that opportunity. We have good friends outside there. They would like to see what we can do and be able to contribute in the agenda that we have developed. So it's really upon us that we strengthen this network and be able to offer that good leadership. And I think I would like to remind you that the national chapters play a very pivotal role, actually, in ensuring that ATPS move to higher heights. And I want to encourage you at the national level, we'll be able to see how you can be able to bring in your governments, respective governments, as we look at the continental level as well on your behalf. The issue of science, technology, innovation is no doubt in my mind is the driver of the vision that we have in Africa. But this driver will not be able to be implemented if we do not have transparent, accountable, visionary leaders. And I keep on talking about this because I believe it's all about leadership. So we would like to encourage each one of you to offer that leadership and be able to be ambassadors and agents of change so that we can be able to bring more people on board to be able to take this agenda forward. I promised you I'm not going to make many remarks. I would like to stop at that point. Once again, many thanks for the confidence that you bestowed upon me. I'm a team player, and if you think I'm going to be successful, it will be because of your inputs, your suggestion, and where you think that I need to do better. Please, by all means, my email is going to be available as your chair. At the same time, you can be able to reach me also through the ED here, and we can be able to take up any agendas, any issues that we have on the table. Thank you once again. May I suggest now we move straight to the item of the AGM, and we should be able to be through maximum 1 hour. Maximum 1 hour, please. So it is you to help me steer this board, this AGM rather, so that we can be able to finish. Unless there's any burning issue from people in the audience. Thank you. Now the agenda that has been circulated before you, there are 1 or 2 issues that were missing, and one is the remarks by the outgoing and incoming chair, and secondly is the adoption of the agenda. So the agenda has been circulated. May I get a proposer and a seconder to adopt the agenda? Please put up your hand, tell us your name so that the secretary can be able to record. And I want to believe the people who are going to do that are all members. I should have said that earlier. I've seen that that is what is being indicated. Yes, put up your hand and mention your name.
Obed Lamini from Swaziland. I propose the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you, sir. Very much for that. Can we clap for ourselves? So that we've adopted the agenda. The next item on the agenda is minutes of 2010 Annual General Meeting and matters arising. These have been circulated. Each one of you had a copy, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time to give you time to go through it. You've read it. If you have any issue, I will just go page by page. If there are any corrections that you want us to do, we can do that, and then we confirm the minutes, and then we go to matters arising. Page 1, 2, page 3. I'm assuming that each one of you has gone through the minutes. Is that correct?
No.
I thought this minute was circulated.
Yes. It was circulated.
Can I get somebody in the audience that can confirm that the minutes were sent? Thank you. We are STI forum here. We have to use technology, my brothers and sisters, colleagues. All right? Okay? Okay, I'll go a little bit slowly. Slowly, not very slowly though. Page 3. Anything on page 3? Page 4. Five. Six. Seven. Eight. Nine. We were reflecting 10 years since the autonomy of ATPS. We had resolutions. You want to look at the resolutions on page 9? Any corrections? Last but not least on page 10. Those who are present during the meeting, could you please put up your hand, propose, and I get another hand to second. Brad, thank you. Next. Aduda, thank you very much. We have confirmed the minutes. I'm going to sign that on your behalf. May I now request Secretariat to take us through matters arising? They've extracted matters arising. Are you going to project?
No, that is
basically how we have implemented the resolutions of the last AGM. First, the financial accounts of the ATPS for 2009 was adopted by the AGM. We have now published that on the website for the wider membership. And the resolutions of the national chapters was also adopted by the AGM in Cairo, and that included institutionalization of ATPS. It also included formalization of membership, and we have implemented that, and that's why all of us here have now duly registered as members of the ATPS. And the third resolution was about the manifesto for science and technology, that each country receive a copy and start implementation planning and activities. We have implemented that, and we called a meeting of the national chapters in April where we started implementation planning for the manifesto, out of which this conference was born, to look at the links between national chapters and this, and also the initiative of the State of STI in Africa report, which is ongoing, and we are going to be drawing on all the expertise seated in this room and beyond to implement that. And also we issue some grants for Scientific Revival Day celebration for June, where some of the national chapters requested for funds to be able to implement some of the decisions, recommendations of the manifesto, and the chapters know themselves. Then the fourth resolution was to adopt the request. This body adopted the request to form new chapters in Egypt, Morocco, Sudan, UK, and USA at that meeting, and also to issue grants to strengthen Botswana, the Gambia, South Africa, and Zambia. And we have implemented this for the chapters where we have focal points, including Egypt, Morocco, Sudan, UK, and USA, now strengthening Zambia and South Africa. The Gambia and Botswana were still having challenges because we don't have active national chapter focal points in those places. So I would like to call on members, if you have people who are interested in STI, who can take the flag for those two countries, to please do let us know. Thank you.
Okay, any reactions to the matters arising? There's a hand here.
I have collected copies of the annual report for that year, 2010, and this was also circulated several months ago to all registered members. And if you go to page 69, you will find the audited accounts for the year ended 2010. And on the first page is just the verdict being given by the board-appointed auditor, Deloitte and Touche, that the funds of the organization have been used judiciously, transparently, following all the rules and regulations, and they also gives you a clue of what they looked into. Page 71, you will see the statement of the comprehensive income for that year ended, and expenditure for that year ended, and you will find what we carried forward for the end of the year. So we're giving 2009 and 2010 so that we can see the progression. In 2009, we had a closing balance of 1.6 million. And then, that's the income of 1.6 million. And then in 2010, that grew to 2.1 million. The next page gives more details. Statement of the financial position of ATPS, that's page 72. And you will see all the assets and liabilities of the ATPS presented accordingly. On the next page, you will also find the statement of changes in equity for the year ended 31 December. And you can see how that has been. I'm not going into all the figures because we have received them and we have read them, I believe. Then the last one is the statement of cash flow on page 74. And we can see how the cash flow of the ATPS has been. And in the next report, in that report, you will see what the funding had been used for, which activities were implemented, and how they were utilized. So that is in this report, been audited by the appointed auditor. So at this stage, I think it's just for information, except if somebody has queries, then Finance and Admin Manager, who is seated here, will be able to address them. Thank you.
Okay, can we get that? Do we not? Yes, I can see at the end, there's a hand. Yes, please. Can we get another mic?
Good.
The report of the Board of Directors.
Yeah.
ED.
Okay, here it's just to report on the proceedings that the board, decisions that the board has taken in the past year. First, that your recommendations regarding adopting the national coordinators' resolutions were duly adopted by the board and are being implemented by the board. And then the technical and narrative and financial reports is just what I've presented in the published reports that you have. So that also constitutes the main report from the board of directors. And then the board has also appointed a new chair that you have heard of just now, and also taken some decisions about board rotation, which will be announced when we come to that agenda item. So, except if there is any addition, Mr. Chair, that I have missed, then this is the brief report that we have. Thank you.
Okay. And quite a number of these issues that are being presented to you are actually tabled before us. And I can speak on behalf of my colleagues that we are satisfied that Executive Director here and his team at the Secretariat, they've been doing a good job as far as we are concerned, giving us the information. And our job really is to offer that advice without micromanaging them and give policy direction on how we can be able to look at the issue of strategic plans, strategic direction, financial matters, human resource issues, networking, partnership and collaboration as per what is being stipulated in our strategic plan. And I think we are satisfied that they have been doing what they were supposed to be doing for this year. And just for you to take note that we are doing this on behalf of yourselves as the board. I don't think if you want to discuss that a lot, we just take note of that. Sorry?
Something missing.
He's saying there's something missing. Okay.
The chair just passed a vote of confidence on the secretariat, and I'm not seeing someone clap.
Okay, I was just wondering. Okay, it's a good one. Okay, anyway, they deserve that. Don't you think so?
Yes.
Thank you. Right, okay, can we move to the next item of the, I promised you're going to go to the beach.
Yes.
Yeah? So I wanted you guys to go to the, but please, let's do justice on the agenda as well, all right? As I move, if there are any things that you think I need to slow down, by all means, put up your hand, all right? And I can be able to see you raise any issues, please, okay? Next item is confirmation of external auditors. The last time...
Confirmation of board members.
Oh, okay. This I told you that these guys are giving me different things. Where is it?
Yeah, confirmation of board members.
Confirmation of board members. I've ticked it as if it's been done. Okay. Confirmation of the board members. I will ask the ED to take us through the members who are there, and then we leave it to you so that you can be able to confirm or otherwise the members who are present on the board, and the issue of rotation as well, I think is going to come at this point as well. ED?
Thank you,